each and every Monday at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. What's up, Brian? How are you?
I'm good, guys. How about you guys?
Doing very well, thank you. Appreciate your time this morning and every morning. All right, so busy weekend. We saw Kansas win their second straight on Friday. We saw Iowa State lose its second straight. We saw Texas Tech slay the Giant and BYU at home. What stood out to you kind of big picture, Brian, from the weekend that was in the Big 12?
You named some really big moments that happened this weekend. I think one of the things that's clear is it's really hard to win on the road in the Big 12. You know, we talk about how challenging this league is and that every game matters and that every team is very, very capable. It's proven out this weekend. You know, it's just really tough to go to some of these environments and have success. You talked about Kansas winning this week against Baylor on Friday, which was a awesome environment. I actually happened to be up there with my 9-year-old son. We made the trip to Lawrence, which was great.
Nice.
But seeing Kansas win 2 games this week really helped them kind of right the ship and kind of get back on the right foot, which was big for them. And then you talked about the Texas Tech BYU game, which was probably the game of the weekend. And that was a incredible tug of war between 2 teams that are very, very capable of making deep runs in the NCAA tournament. And, you know, we can spend a little bit more time diving into that game, but that was certainly one that was fun to watch on Saturday night.
Brian, we were talking at the top of the show about Ari watching the game with his son, the Bears game over the weekend. I caught BYU and Texas Tech with my son, who is 7. You said yours is 9. So what were some of those moments like and some of those conversations like as he's taking in Baylor and Kansas in one of the most historic venues in all of college basketball?
It was fantastic. And my 9-year-old son, his name is Deuce. He's Brian Jr., but he goes by Deuce. And he loves basketball. He loves sports. He loves to compete. He says that he wants to be a college level basketball player down the road. Time will tell if that happens. But going to Lawrence was just a great opportunity for us. You know, just as a son and father to spend some time together. I took him out of school actually on Friday. We flew up, went to both team shoot-arounds, which was fantastic. And just for him to get the opportunity to interact with the players and the coaches and, meet some of those guys was cool. But also just watching the attention to detail, watching the way that they prepare, watching the way they practice. One of the things that we talked about after Kansas' shoot-around was Darren Peterson was the last one to leave the court. He stayed on the court probably 20, 25 minutes longer than any other Kansas player, just continuing to get shots up, working with the managers on different kind of shots that he would get in the game. And I told my son, I said, there's no secret why he's predicted to be one of the top 3 picks in the NBA draft. You can't skip the line. And it showed by the extra work that he put in.
Yeah, well said. Just from your expertise, your observing eye, did it look like Kansas has figured out a little bit better how to play with Darren Peterson this week?
I mean, they really started to click this week. 2 20-plus point wins were good. Obviously, they were at home, which helps. Darren Peterson is certainly a special talent, but it's important for them to have more time together on the floor as an entire unit. Flory Badunga was outstanding on Friday, and that's another one of the pieces that they need to continue to be good. But the more time that they can get together, the more time they can continue to gel and have that chemistry so people can understand what their roles are. When he's playing, he is a huge focal part of the team. And when he's been out, other guys like Melvin Council and others have had to really step into a leadership role and score the ball a little bit more. But it seems like they're starting to find their stride, which is good for Kansas and also good for the league.
Brian, when it comes to everything that took place on Saturday, and I know there's a ton of games during the week, but it was pretty cool to see that College Game Day is going to launch their slate in Lubbock this upcoming weekend for Houston and Texas Tech. That announcement was made public during the BYU-Texas Tech game. What does that mean for the league?
It's a great step for the league. When we started building out our schedule for this year, we wanted to create and put games on Saturdays that we felt like would have an opportunity to be on game day. We fully expect that although the Texas Tech-Houston game is the first one on game day, we fully expect that it won't be the last. We anticipate having several more cracks at game day, which is great for the league, great for the institutions, especially those that host, because they get an opportunity to really showcase their school, their spirit, their fan base, and all those things kind of rolled up in one day of excitement. But the Texas Tech Houston game has really turned into a nice rivalry lately over the last couple of years, and I'm sure this one won't disappoint.
Brian, anytime there's stories in sports world about point shaving college basketball, I mean, I think that obviously is so detrimental to the sport overall. But I'm curious if you could shed a light from a Big 12 perspective on, what's going on behind the scenes, at a conference level, to sort of make sure these kinds of things aren't happening. Because obviously this is not a story that touches the Big 12, fortunately.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to dodge that bullet for the most part. It's scary, anytime that the integrity of the games is under siege, that's a bad thing. And you've seen this nationwide. There's so much money that's flowing out there,
Yeah.
both from a gambling standpoint, but also because some of these young men and young women have a lot more money in their hands as well. And the more money you have in your hands, the more trouble sometimes you can get into. And point shaving kind of becomes one of those things. You start to owe somebody, and then you got to figure out ways to recoup that. We've been fortunate that, again, our institutions have done a really good job of staying diligent with their programs and their teams and talking to them. We have some safeguards in place. We work with a company called IC360 that monitors all of the lines and what happens throughout the course of every week. I meet with them. Every week, every Wednesday, we have a standing meeting where we go through the lines, what changed, were there big spikes and differences, things to keep an eye on. So they keep us very well informed. And if there's anything that they feel like is a little bit untoward, then that's something we can communicate to our institutions in advance, and try to be proactive versus retroactive. And it's certainly not perfect, and not to say that we won't ever be hit by something like this down the road, but we feel like we're doing a pretty good job right now.
Talking with Brian Thornton, Big 12 men's basketball vice president for the league here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. There was only one road team that won this weekend in the Big 12, and that was Arizona winning at UCF. We were talking last week about some of the environments in the Big 12, but even like a Utah's tough at home. West Virginia's brutal at home. Cincinnati gets a big win over Iowa State. So what was the biggest, kind of boost from the crowd, upset, if you will, in your opinion, from the slate?
Well, I mean, I think that the obvious one is Cincinnati holding serve against Iowa State at home. They had a great environment, resulted in a court storm with that win. But I think it just gave Cincinnati a little bit of life. They beat Colorado, and then they followed that up with a huge win against Iowa State. And all of a sudden now they have a little bit of momentum. This is college. Conference season is a game of momentum. And, if you can get it, you can win 2 or 3 in a row, all of a sudden you feel like you're starting to get back into it. And in a league like ours, you're trying to get to that magic number of 9 or 10 conference wins. And if you do that, you feel like you have a more than a puncher's chance to be in the NCAA tournament.
Talking with Brian Thornton here, the VP of men's basketball for the Big 12. Curious kind of behind the scenes, like when we talk about game day being on site for the Big 12 and what a great environment that is. Like, what does that mean at a conference level? What are kind of the things that the conference can do to lean into that stuff?
Well, we try to support the institutions as best we can, but it's really an institutional show.
Yeah.
It's the institution being able to bring their students, their fans out there for the game day show. It's an opportunity to tell their story, and we want to support that as best as we can. Houston had a game day last year. Iowa State had game day last year. Again, I'm sure that we'll have other opportunities for that. It's no secret that game day likes to go to big time environments. They like to go to places where they feel like the crowd's going to be into it, the students are going to be into it, and that they can really tell the story of the student athletes that are performing some human pieces that you might not get to hear otherwise. So, anything we can do from the conference level. Obviously, the biggest thing that we've done is we tried to set up a schedule that fosters ESPN selecting some of our games for game day. But once game day happens, we'll support them with some content. We'll have some of our staff present for those games. But again, we really allow the institutions to shine.
Brian, JT Toppins had 9 straight double-doubles. all the talk nationally about all the freshmen in college basketball, and here's a guy who came back to school, could have gone off to the NBA, and he's just on an absolute tear right now for Texas Tech. What stands out about the way he's playing, and then what does that say about like Texas Tech, maybe a team that everybody's sleeping on, like a Houston, like some of these others in the Big 12 that could make a really deep run come March?
Texas Tech is a little bit under the radar, but they really shouldn't be. We knew some of the pieces that they had returning. Obviously, they lost some guys, but anytime you return a guy like JT Toppin and Christian Anderson for that standpoint, it's going to be a formidable team. And it's taken them a little bit of time to gel. They've had some injuries that they fought through. And I know Coach McCasland wants them to be elite defensively, so I know that they'll get there. But what JT Toppin has done in his time back is he's continued to dominate in the areas that make him special. He's an outstanding finisher inside 15 feet, seemingly can make everything. And then his second jump and his ability to rebound is first class. And then the thing that you saw against BYU is he's starting to expand his game. Anytime guys decide to come back to college, they should utilize that time to figure out, how do I make myself better? Obviously continue to do the things that make you great, but he started to expand his game a little bit. You're starting to see him handle the ball and in transition. You're starting to see him do a little bit more on the perimeter from a dribble handoff and ball screen standpoint. And most importantly, he banged a couple big threes in the game, which showcases his ability to stretch the floor, which he'll have to be able to do as a little bit of an undersized post guy in the NBA. So he was certainly the best player on the floor in that game against BYU. But when you think about their big three of Anderson and Watts, that's like one of the highest scoring trios in the entire country. And in this game against BYU, they got the best of their big three in Debanza, Saunders, and Wright, who was also fantastic.
Brian, have you ever seen a freshman class like this? And I mean, just speaking specifically to the Big 12, I mean, it's kind of insane. Houston was so close to winning a national championship last year. A freshman, maybe their best player, even with Uzan and Sharp and Tugler back. I mean, Darren Peterson, AJ Debanza, Koa Pete and Braden Berries at Arizona. And that's just scratching the surface here. I mean, the freshman class is insane.
You hit the nail on the head. I think nationally, this is maybe the best freshman class we've seen maybe ever.
Yeah.
You named off a bunch of guys right there, but, that doesn't even, really tell the entire story. Guys like Yesufu from Baylor, you didn't mention. Jock from Arizona State, who's been outstanding, you didn't mention. Killian Torrey from Iowa State has been great as well. So I think that not only is the class extremely, extremely strong at the top with, Diabances and Petersons and Flemings of the world, but then the depth is just incredible as well. And, there's probably, 10, 12 freshmen in our league that, have the ability to be all conference level players, depending on, if they decide to move or not. But when you look at the NBA big board, we probably have 3 of those freshmen that are in the top 3 or 4 of the draft. And I would imagine by the time we get there, if those guys decide to leave, we're probably going to have 7 or 8 that are, first rounders.
Ryan, asking for a friend, how's the television stuff going with there's less games on ESPN Plus. There's more games on like CBS Sports Network and NBC Sports Network and on Peacock. And then you still have your ESPN heavy hitters and ESPN2. From what I've seen, the fans have been very positive in the way that they consume Big 12 basketball.
Well, there's certainly, as you mentioned, there's a lot of ways to digest our products right now with 5 TV partners. I think that one thing that's great is that all of our TV partners are really leaning in to what we're doing. Obviously, the fact that we're having a great year helps, but when you watch a game on CBS Sports Network or TNT or Peacock, it feels like a big time game. Kind of regardless of the matchup, those platforms are doing a great job of showcasing the student athletes. They have great talent on the games, which makes it special. When TNT has Grant Hill doing the game, Grant Hill does the Final Four.
Yeah,
so when,
right.
you have him doing a game, it feels like a big time matchup. And, whether it's Bill Rafferty doing an FS1 game or things of that nature, it just feels big. Gus Johnson was doing the the Kansas
Yeah.
Baylor game on Friday night. And I mean, he's one of the best in the business. So we have great talent. We have great TV partners. Yes, you have to look a little bit harder or pay a little bit more attention to the schedule to know where the games are going to be. But once you find that game on TV, it's going to be a great product.
Brian Thornton, VP of men's basketball for the Big 12, joins us each and every Monday at 8 Central, 9 Eastern. Always appreciate your time, Brian. Thanks so much, buddy. Be well.
Absolutely. See you guys next week.
See you, Brian.
Great to talk with Brian Thornton every Monday. He gives us his thoughts and insights into the Big 12 and across college basketball. With James Westling, I am Ari Temkin. All right, our portal season updates continue. We're working our way from the bottom of the Big 12 football standings to the top. And we start today with UCF. We'll see what UCF looks like in the immediate aftermath of the season in Scott Frost's year 2. With James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin on a Modelo Monday. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.